Hello and welcome into the Hecklers Podcast. We are coming to you on a Wednesday because some big moves happened in the NFL yesterday, and I wanted to wait to record until we had a good sense of what each of these trades would look like. And with that being said, I'm also going to do a reduced recap of the weekend to save time for us to talk about the trades that we saw yesterday. So, without any further delay, let's jump into our condensed recap of the weekend. I pulled out a few things that I wanted to specifically talk about from the weekend, storylines that I thought were important to share. The first of which would be coming out of that game in London in the morning, where Caleb Williams, to me, really seems to be finding his footing, and I think he looks really good. I think the Bears did a really good job of, over the past few years, putting the talent in place so that when Caleb Williams got to the Bears, that he would be able to hit the ground running. And I think we're starting to see the benefits of that. Now, with that said, that division, the NFC North, is just incredibly competitive. And I don't know that the Bears are going to be ready this year. But I like the path that they're on, and I like the path that Caleb Williams is on. And I think that they just, like I said, I think that they've done a really good job of building a team around the rookie quarterback. More teams need to do this. Of course, the Panthers, and I wish Billy was here because I like to give him a hard time, but the Panthers really aided this situation by giving them DJ Moore and also a bounty of picks to be able to build up that team around Caleb Williams. So I am really pleasantly surprised. I was somebody who doubted Caleb Williams, probably because of his personality. I feel myself doing a similar thing with Shador Sanders in Colorado, and I probably need to reevaluate that because sometimes these personalities that we dislike, sometimes that's just who guys are, and the player is very good. And you have to kind of ignore the fact that they're not your cup of tea and acknowledge how good they are. And I think that's kind of where we're at with Caleb Williams, where for Bears fans, they're probably getting excited. He's their guy. For the rest of us, we're probably like, can't stand Caleb Williams and upset that he's doing well. So Caleb Williams, looking really good. I think the Bears have to be excited about that. All right. The next one I wanted to talk about is coming out of the game that I was able to watch this weekend, just based on where I live, which was the Saints game. So I watched Spencer Rattler in his debut. And Spencer Rattler, for context, is somebody that I believed in pretty highly coming into the draft. I thought he should have been a third round pick. He slipped to the fifth. From what I understand, a lot of teams didn't like his attitude, didn't like who he was in the QB1 documentary, which, of course, is from when he's in high school and he's a, five-star recruit and he's the shit and the talk of the town, and it went to his head. We just talked about like personalities with Caleb Williams. That's basically who Spencer Rattler was until Caleb Williams replaced him. He had to go to South Carolina, play through adversity, rehab his image, and get knocked down a peg. I'm one of these guys when I'm evaluating quarterbacks, particularly in Dynasty. One of the things that I look for are guys who had elite pedigrees who, for whatever reason, have fallen from grace and had to go through adversity. And for me, like, this Spencer Rattler fit this bill pretty much to a T, right? Very good prospect coming into college, was supposed to be the heir apparent to Kyler Murray, and ultimately gets replaced by a phenomenal Caleb Williams. Losing your job to Caleb Williams is like not a bad thing at all. Like, that's perfectly understandable. And I thought that by going through adversity, by learning, by basically being knocked down a peg, getting that chip on your shoulder, a lot like Baker Mayfield in the NFL, right? That when you get knocked down a peg and you get that chip on your shoulder, you're playing for something. you're now playing for something, right? You're playing to prove the doubters wrong. And I think that that always makes a player better. And when I watched Spencer Rattler on Sunday, I thought he looked like somebody who wanted to take the job from Derek Carr and not give it back, particularly in the first half. I thought they were significantly better. The second half, things got a little sloppy. They were trying some things and it just wasn't working out. Of course, Olave goes down early in that game. But Spencer Rattler, to me, what I liked is he showed a bit of the dynamic playmaking ability that we saw throughout his college years. And I think that what he possesses is sort of that backyard playmaking ability that teams are looking for in the NFL these days. The ability to go off script and make a play. I think his arm talent is very good. I don't think there's any denying that. And I think his ability to run an offense, he stepped in. One of the things I said leading up to the NFL draft was that I felt like of all the quarterbacks in the draft, Spencer Rattler, because of the way that he played in college, was by far the most NFL ready. Now, what does that mean? Well, to me, that means he can step in on day one and run an NFL offense. He's not going to be overwhelmed being under center. He knows how to read coverages. He knows how to make adjustments at the line of scrimmage. Things that you don't get when you're sort of aided by a college scheme and you're protected by a college scheme, right? So you see a lot of guys come out of college, they need to work on kind of learning how to be an NFL quarterback and play at the NFL level. That's not what Spencer Rattler needs to do. So I always felt like he was ripe for being able to be plugged in. I loved when he landed with the Saints because I said to myself, one, Carr is getting old. Two, Carr has a history of injuries. He will almost certainly get his chance. He did. I thought he looked really good. Shaky in the second half, but the first half looked really good. Lots of unique playmaking. Showed the strength of his arm, showed his ability to manage an NFL offense. I hope we get to see a little bit more of him. At the same time, I do hope Derek Carr comes back, gets healthy. But I am excited for Spencer Rattler. All right. The other rookie debut from the weekend for my New England Patriots, Drake May. This one, I unfortunately did not have the privilege of watching, which just disappointed me. But he wowed in his debut, really showed flashes, showed the arm talent, but also showed uh, the lack of discipline and accuracy that have sort of plagued him, right? The things that we talk about when he came out of college, right? The big knock was you you have this phenomenal arm. When he came out of college, he had I think he had the highest big throw percentage, big throw rate of any quarterback in the draft class. So that means like just big time throws, those plays. Think Aaron Rodgers, right? Those throws that you just have to have. He had the highest rating, right? But he also would miss really easy throws. He would miss routine plays. And I think that you saw a little bit of that in this game. It led to the turnovers, just kind of mistakes by May, but also flashes of talent. And to me, this is looking a lot like Josh Allen, which has me excited. Where it's like, hey, this kid's got a hell of an arm. We just need to keep coaching him up. We need to let him play through it and figure it out. And he took a beating in this game, and he got up every single time. Which, God love him. The Patriots need to do a better job. They need to fix this offensive line as soon as possible. We talk about Caleb Williams being set up for success. Drake May is set up for failure and still managed to look good. So I'm excited about that. I do think obviously like the offense just looked more competent. The receivers looked more competent with him. I think it's just a sense of like we can actually throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field. So receivers are excited. They're playing hard. Demario Douglas kind of looked really good in this game, I felt like. So that's exciting. I love Demario Douglas personally. I think he's the best receiver on the team, even though we drafted Jalen Polk this year. I still think Demario Douglas is very good. And at this point, I'm like, Kayshon Boutte, between the preseason, between this game where he has a touchdown, like he's making plays. Let's put him out there, right? Like I ideally would like to just see Kayshon on the outside, Jalen Polk kind of playing inside, outside, and then just let Demario Douglas cook in the slot, and let's throw this friggin' ball, you know. So I'm excited for Drake May. I don't want to get my hopes up too much. I don't want to expect Josh Allen, even though I said earlier that this feels like Josh Allen. I don't want to expect that because that's putting a lot on Drake May and a lot on a Patriots organization that I don't think knows what they're doing all the time when it comes to developing quarterbacks. I mean, hell, you had Tom Brady for 2 decades. You didn't really have to worry much about developing quarterbacks. So I don't know that there's a system in place to do that, but I hope there is. All right. Moving on from Drake May, the part of the show that we all love to do, we are going to dunk on the Cowboys. They suck. They just keep getting beat down at home, and they have no answer for it. I mean, this was just an embarrassing loss. Jerry Jones is all up in his feels, screaming at radio hosts, threatening to fire them this week. And it's like, dude, you're the problem. We talked about the Amari Cooper deal earlier. I saw this. The Cowboys traded Amari Cooper for like a 5th-round pick to the Browns, and the Browns just traded him for a 3rd and a 7th. So you tell me who the problem is in Dallas, right? I think it's a owner slash GM who has lost touch with reality and is no longer. Here's the thing: we we all would love to just dunk on Jerry Jones consistently, but he has done a good job of like drafting, building the roster. Like they've been competitive as a regular season team for a long time. I will give him his flowers there. But when you look at where they're at right now, there's a series of bad decisions that are leading here. And you have to wonder if age, if any number of factors are contributing to Jerry Jones just not being the GM that he has been. The Cowboys, and we've talked about this, their defense is struggling. Like their defense does not look the same without Dan Quinn, who of course is now in Washington leading that team to a very good season. I think the defense is struggling. I think there obviously is no run game to play off of. The fact that Jerry Jones didn't do anything about the run game except bring back an aging Ezekiel Elliott for a reunion tour, like to me, that's negligent, right? Like that's the malpractice of the season. And that's a big reason why the Cowboys are struggling so much. All right. The last one I want to talk about is going to be the Bills versus the Jets. This was that Monday night game. The Bills pick up a really important win in the AFC East, this one in New Jersey. So, I mean, this to me, this is going to be what we are watching, right? Because the Dolphins without Tua have just fallen off and fallen behind. And I also don't think they're built for the second half of the year. So I'm not worried about them kind of like coming back in the second half of the year with Tua. So really, these are the two teams to watch in the AFC East. And I think everybody kind of knew that coming into the season. And the question was, are the Bills, do they have enough? And is Aaron Rodgers MVP Rodgers and he can lead the Jets over the Bills and they can win the division? Well, we're kind of getting an answer, right? Aaron Rodgers has lost a step, and the Bills, even though they don't have enough, their defense is playing well and they're finding ways to win. And in this one, they find a way to win and they pick up an important win in the division to really just create a stranglehold on the top of the division. And now they can just kind of focus on running away with it, which, not to be outdone, the this actually really leads us into the main topic of today's shows, right? A pair of receivers finding new homes in the AFC East. Like, we are starting to see both of these teams, the Jets and the Bills, acknowledge that they want to make a playoff run and they're willing to do something about it. So, without further ado, let's jump into the big news of the day. In what was one of the worst kept secrets in the NFL, the Jets landed Davante Adams on Tuesday morning, reuniting the star wideout with his longtime quarterback. For me, this move just makes sense for a ton of reasons. I think the most important for me is I think it'll give Garrett Wilson a chance to step back and develop his talents against lesser coverages, right? He's not going to be getting the one treatment anymore. And he's going to have an opportunity to continue to hone his skills, refine, and develop chemistry with Aaron Rodgers without needing to be the focal point of the offense. I just don't think he was ready. I don't think the connection between Wilson and Rodgers was strong enough early in the season. So that's why I think this Adams deal is so important, because it's going to bring in a ready-made partnership and a wide receiver one who can really occupy a lot of defense's attention and give Garrett Wilson a chance to, like I said, develop that chemistry, hone his skills against lesser coverages in less critical not downs, but less critical um uh targets, we'll call it, right? Where it's like you don't need to be everything now. We've got Devontae Adams, he can carry the load. You can focus on making big plays. Think Jalen Waddle, think Devontae Smith, right? Guys who make the most of their opportunities, and their opportunities are complementary to the primary receivers. The other piece about this is that the compensation for this deal was really not atrocious, right? The Jets only give up a conditional third that can turn into a second, depending on the play of Devontae Adams. I think they're definitely comfortable with that. And also, I think one of the things that stands out to me is the Raiders were offered better compensation in the offseason and carried Devontae Adams into the season and got less. To me, that's a bit of malpractice, because you need to look at your roster and say, if you're the Raiders, we don't have a use for a Devontae Adams on this team. We are not a playoff team. We are a rebuilding team who really need to be looking to get a quarterback in the next draft. So we don't even need to really be winning games, right? We can take our time to explore whether or not Aiden O'Connell is any good, and we can focus on trying to get a quarterback next year. You don't need Devontae Adams for that. So it didn't make sense to carry him into the season, and ultimately they paid the price for doing so. So to me, shame on the Raiders for doing that. Of course, I'm happy. If he was always going to land with the Jets, I'm kind of happy they've got a couple losses under their belt first, because I don't want to see the Jets do well. I would much rather see the Bills win the division than the Jets, because forget the Jets. But the thing about this move is the Jets are clearly all in on this iteration of the team, and time is going to tell if this works out. Like, you are putting a lot of eggs in this basket. You fired Robert Saleh. You have now traded a good bit of compensation on the whole to build this roster out, and the results haven't been there yet. So you better turn it around quickly, and you better hope that these two click and that they are the same duo they were in Green Bay, or you're going to be up Schitt's Creek here in a couple of years when Rodgers retires, Devontae Adams doesn't feel like sticking around. You're leveraging a lot for right now. And on the other side of this, not to be outdone, the Bills answered the call almost immediately and went out and added a star receiver of their own. And I know what you're saying, Gordon, he's not a star. Yes, he is. Shut up. The Bills traded a third and a seventh for Amari Cooper and an early sixth. So they actually are going to upgrade their seventh round pick, which would almost certainly be a late seventh round pick, to an early sixth. And basically, so in reality, like, the compensation here, I love it. To me, this is one of those sneaky deals that makes a team ready to compete so much better. Amari Cooper is one of the most undervalued players across the entire league. He has consistently produced, and I really don't understand why no team seems to have want to hold on to Amari Cooper. We've never really heard anything about him, like, as a locker room guy, right? Like, where it's, oh, he's a cancer in the locker room. Like, we've never heard that. And when you look at it, so let's break down the last couple years. So 2023 with Cleveland, 72 receptions, 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. In 2022, 78 receptions, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. In Dallas, right? He had a 4-year run in Dallas. He was averaging pretty much close to 900 to 1,000 yards a season. He was consistently getting that 5 to 8 touchdown range, and, would creep up and down in receptions, right? So, like, as high as 92, as low as 53, right? And it's like, this guy can really play. And he is going to instantly make the Bills better. Like, you look at the Bills right now, nothing is working from a receiving perspective. Like Keon Coleman is good, but he's not ready. And Curtis Samuel, who you probably would have expected to be the professional in the room, right, the veteran to step in and handle a bulk of the touches, a bulk of the targets while Keon Coleman develops, he really just has not looked good, and he hasn't been the guy. And so that really leaves like Khalil Shakir as like their best receiving target, although I'd even argue Mac Hollins is probably better. So it's kind of been a mess. And Billy and I have talked about the need for the Bills to add some receiving help. And I think that this really answers the call in a big way. The other thing I want to talk about with this, because I think it kind of goes underappreciated and underreported because the contract side of things is like not sexy to most people. But as you know from our offseason conversations, Billy and I live for the contract piece. The Amari Cooper deal, the Browns before the start of the season converted a ton of Amari Cooper's salary to a signing bonus, which means that the Bills are going to pay him like $800,000 for the season. It is some insane number for a guy of that quality. So that contract alone is worth its weight in gold if you are the Bills right now. So like that's what I love about this. So what does that mean, right? What does bringing in this $800,000 contract mean? Well, it means this doesn't have to be the end, right? Like the Bills now have a little bit of wiggle. It's not a lot of wiggle room, but they have a little bit of wiggle room that they can add another piece if they want. If they feel like their chances at a Super Bowl are pretty legitimate this year, which I think they are, given the fact that the Chiefs do not look like the juggernaut. I know their record looks phenomenal, but the play on the field doesn't match. They don't look like a juggernaut. I think the Bills can do this. We know that the Ravens choke in the playoffs. I think that the Bills, if they add another piece, I don't know that it has to be a receiver. I think you could add like a defensive piece and it would be helpful. Like maybe a pass rusher or something, especially. I don't know how long Von Miller's out. I'd have to look. But I think that what I love about this deal is you didn't blow up your salary cap to make the deal happen. You didn't give up a ton. You got a really good player. I think one of the most undervalued players in the NFL. And you did so while leaving enough room to keep adding pieces so that you can go to the playoffs and make a deep run. And when you look at the situation with the Chiefs, there's an arms race in the AFC East right now because the Chiefs are down and teams feel like they can beat them. And the team noticeably absent from all of this conversation about trades, about picking up receivers, is the Chiefs, who are going to need to find receiver help in light of their injuries. I know that it has worked with Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy, but you cannot rely on Juju Smith-Schuster and Sky Moore or whoever the hell they want to roll out there when you're going into the playoffs. Like, I'm sorry, you cannot go up against teams like the Bills and the Ravens with Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a Patriots fan. I know Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm telling you right now, he's not the guy. And you can't do that. They're going to need to go get a receiver, and they probably missed out by not trading for Amari Cooper and that $800,000 contract. They probably just missed out on what I think would have been their best chance to cover off the injury to Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, which I'm not mad about. I don't want to see the Chiefs win a Super Bowl. So I'm rooting for the Bills here to knock off the Chiefs. Obviously, I hope they knock off the Chiefs and make the Super Bowl and then lose in the Super Bowl because I don't want my AFC East rival to win the Super Bowl. But I do feel like they are our best bulwark against the Chiefs winning a third Super Bowl. So that does it for us on this Wednesday recap and trade reaction edition of the Hecklers Podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be back on Friday for our usual weekly podcast with Billy. We'll be previewing the weekend ahead and talking about all these deals, I'm sure, and much more. I'm hoping more deals come in. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the Cam Akers deal because that's just not that important. Although I will say maybe it hints at the Vikings not feeling too good about Aaron Jones' health. So something to watch if you're an Aaron Jones owner. But we're going to be previewing the weekend, talking about all the deals, a lot more. We're going to get Billy's reaction to these things so you don't just have to take my word for it. So until next time, keep heckling.
1, 2.